set you up. So you have your wills and trusts, and that's how you kind of decide how assets are going to be passed along. But the beneficiary designation on retirement accounts, and we're talking IRAs, TSPs, 457, 403Bs, all these retirement vehicles. If you name a beneficiary, you don't need to go any further to mention it or put it into a will or trust, because actually, even if you did, my understanding is, let's say in the will you said, okay, I'm gonna leave everything to, my niece or nephew in the will, but the beneficiary designation says something different. Maybe it's, a spouse or something. Then that's going to supersede what's said in the will. Am I correct there?
Yeah. So payable on death beneficiary designations for you can do it for bank accounts, investment accounts, you can do it for other assets. You can even do it for real estate. There are things called transfer on death deeds. So that's why earlier I mentioned trust is one way to avoid probate. Another way is a beneficiary designation for your property. All things that are possible. And if the caveat is if the beneficiary survives you and is around to receive it after you're gone, then yes, that goes first. So even if exactly like you said, you have your IRA going to your grandchild, but you have everything else going to your kids, your will says, I leave everything to my kids. But if you put your grandchild on your IRA or something, that's going to supersede anything that your estate plan says.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not too familiar with the transfer on death for real estate with the titling. That's something I'll have to look into. That's interesting. And then the other thing is, so the trust is like an entity. So as far as, while we're on the topic of beneficiaries, you can name a trust as the beneficiary because it's a non-person entity, right? I typically advise clients to avoid that unless you have a good reason. If you have a good reason, sure. And the reason I do that is the taxation of assets within a trust, they can get really complicated, and I don't want to get completely down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But it's just something to consider. Is usually you want a good reason to name the trust the benefit. Like for instance, I don't know what you could think of, like what do they call it? Like a spendthrift.
Yeah. So it's usually if someone's saying, especially in Hawaii, where I think there are folks who have a lot sitting in a retirement account. Typical client, real estate, some cash, not much, and then like a lot in their retirement. And they have a child who they're worried is gonna mismanage it, whether, because they don't know how to handle things or because they have some sort of addiction problem, anything that's going on with the beneficiary, where they're like, if this child gets my retirement account, that's going to be gone in a year. How can we avoid this? I want them to have the money. I want them to be able to use the money, but right. I don't want them to control it. So that would be a situation where you can't then name your friend or someone else as the beneficiary of the IRA and then expect them to be able to use the money for your child. So you would name a trust. The trust could be receive the assets. There's taxes and stuff that go on there that's less advantageous, but you're going to have the security of someone else managing the account for your child.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know I always defer to like the financial advisors, the accountants, all of that on retirement. Who should be the beneficiary of your retirement accounts? If you don't have a specific reason to not, to name someone other than the children or the niece, the nephew, an individual as the beneficiary, usually that's what I say too. Talk to your advisors. They will probably tell you under the tax laws now, it's better to name an individual for the retirement accounts.
Right.
The opinions and statements presented on this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations. Never make any investment or financial decisions based on information offered on this show without first consulting your financial, legal, or tax advisor. All economic and performance information mentioned on the show is historical in nature and is not indicative of any future results. All indices mentioned on this show are unmanaged and cannot be invested in directly. All information is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. Lastly, all opinions opinions expressed by Jason Cutitta and any guests on the show are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of or are endorsed by ToBA Financial. For Jason Cutitta, investment advisory services are offered through ToBA Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor offering advisory services in the state of Hawaii and in other jurisdictions where exempt from registration.